Oh!
Whoa! Opa shock!
Boopa shuck! Greetings everyone, Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to my review series, Is It Worth It? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, and today we're talking about Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, a game which for me was a little bit of a misfire. I do enjoy it, I am having fun, but this is going to be one of those rare reviews where I don't say completely amazing things about a title because there is a lot wrong with this game. And even though I'm having fun, there are quite a few things that you need to pay attention to determine whether or not it's going to be worth it for you because it is going to be different for everybody. Worth noting before I get into this, I'm playing this on the PlayStation 4, so I paid full price for it as a pre-order. Some people can get it through the Microsoft Game Pass, which I believe is, I don't know, like $10 a month or something. I don't have a subscription, but I know you can get it through Games Pass. So if you have that option, I would highly recommend that option because it is a lot less money for a product that still needs quite a bit of work before it's worth 40 bucks in my mind. Um, it's not nearly as bad as Cyberpunk 2077 was at launch, but there are still quite a few things. And I'm going to dig into those things through the course of this review. Now, that being said, I do want to again reiterate I am having fun in this game. I am enjoying this game. For me, yes, it was worth purchasing the game for $40 because I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love the Icewind Dale series. I love the Icewind Dale characters. That all being said, I'm willing to forgive a few quirks and bugs given the attachment that I have to the franchise and the intellectual property. But there are a lot of people out there who won't have that same attachment. And so this review is kind of here in place to talk about it from that perspective. So before I get into all the negatives, because I know I've sounded really negative at the beginning of this review, I do want to talk about the positives. First and foremost, the world itself is absolutely breathtaking. The developers have put a lot of love into this game, and it shows. Just the environments, the world building, the dungeon building, all of this is just incredibly beautiful. The cutscenes are phenomenal. The dialogue is great in terms of, especially if you just listen to the goblins and everybody, as you're getting close to combat encounters, there will always be some snippets of dialogue that happens before you enter into a combat, and the dialogue is often quirky and funny. There's a lot of humor here, and if you pay attention to it, it's well worth the time to just slow down and actually appreciate all the work that went into the writing for this game. So, atmospherically speaking, it's a visually stunning game. The dialogue is quirky and witty, and it really does, it does come across very good in that regards. Um, Being that I'm on the PS4, I can say that there are quite a few hitching issues that I'm seeing on the PS4. I'm on the PS4 normal. I'm not on the Slim or the Pro, just the PlayStation 4 normal. The issues that I've seen are mostly related to cutscenes. There's some hitching that happens in cutscenes, and I've seen some hitching when I get into some like really heavy combat scenarios where there's just a lot of stuff going on the screen. So combat stuff is performance related, but I'm not sure what the hitching um, in the cutscenes is related to. Just I don't know if they just didn't optimize things completely or what's going on there, but that's what I've seen on the PlayStation 4. So again, visually it looks great. There's a little bit of hitching here and there, not that big of a deal. I love the writing and everything else. Um, this could technically be classified as, everybody's calling it an ARPG, an action role playing game. And I kind of have to look at that and go, I don't really see a lot of RPG here. Like, there's not a lot of role playing aspects other than perhaps the loot aspect of the game because there's not really any options for your character during dialogue sequences or anything like that. So there's no role playing going on. But you do have that loot progression, which is common in every Dungeons and Dragons tabletop game, as well as any other D&D title you've ever played, whether it's Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights, so on and so forth. So that aspect of it is here, and that's probably one of the aspects that most people are going to like because since this is an action RPG, an ARPG, it's extremely heavy on the action and it's all about the loot. There are various tiers of loot and there are various tiers to each type of loot. When you go through a mission, you get coins as well as shards, and those shards and coin allow you to upgrade the gear that you get. Now, the gear that you get in the game depends on the difficulty level of the missions that you run. And at the beginning of each mission, there are a variety of difficulty tiers you can choose from. Now, this game can be played solo or with group members. It is a co-op game, designed to be a co-op game. So uh, everything is pretty much designed around going into it with a party of 4 people, the 4 primary characters from the Icewind Dale series, the heroes there. And if you're familiar with Icewind Dale, you'll know who those characters are. If you're not familiar with Icewind Dale and Forgotten Realms, you're not going to know who those characters are, and it really doesn't matter because they aren't fleshed out very well in this game at all. They're just characters with abilities. They're not actually, you don't get to go dive into their stories or anything like that, which is why I kind of say that the RPG aspect of this game, the role playing aspect, is a little lacking. So that being said, you've got basically a thief character, you've got a ranger character, a barbarian character, and a tank character. There's no casters in this game, which Nathan Napalm commented on, and hopefully that's going to be what they're adding when they add the new class that's coming later this year with some of the free updates they're doing, but it remains to be seen. Anyway, loot. There's difficulty levels. You can play solo. I wouldn't recommend doing more than the first couple of tiers on solo, otherwise it gets really challenging. Then the other tiers are there for you to go through with your group members, and each tier is significantly more difficult, and you do need better and better gear to be able to survive and to get through the more difficult tiers, which is where the replayability of this game comes into play because you won't reach max level at the end of your first playthrough. This game is fairly short in terms of just the overall storyline, depending on the difficulty level, if you're doing it with a group or solo, so on and so forth. It's between 7 and 15 hours, basically, is what pretty much has come out across the board from a lot of different players. Again, it depends on your playstyle. There's a lot of factors in that, but between 7 and 15 hours for a single playthrough. But considering there are multiple difficulty tiers for all of the dungeons, um, it's meant to be replayed, and you'll get the max level by the end of your second playthrough, and you just keep going from there. In a lot of ways, I see some similarities to Anthem in the sense that you have a central outpost where you do all your upgrading and everything else. You pick your mission, you pick your difficulty level, and then you go off and choose whether you're going to do it solo or you're going to do it online. You can join some quick plays, so on and so forth. The other aspect of loot as well to help you get items that are rarer than others is during the missions there are waypoints throughout these dungeons, these camps, and there's 4 or 5 I'd say through pretty much all the missions is what I've seen. And uh, when you rest, you get a waypoint and you update all of your potions and everything else. Refill all your potions and disposables, reusables. And you can choose to rest or you can choose to ignore that rest, ignore the waypoint, and increase the loot rarity for the dungeon. But it is a risk versus reward scenario because if you do that, you don't get the waypoint. And in this game, similar to, I believe, Dark Souls, when you die, everything respawns from your last waypoint onwards. So if you've chosen to bypass, say, 2 or 3 different waypoints, and that was like 30 minutes worth of content, and you do eventually die, like on the boss, you're going to go all the way back to the last waypoint, which might be the beginning of the zone, and have to clear everything all the way over again to get to the boss one more time. So it is a risk versus reward scenario with the loot. But that's probably the number one component of this game is the loot. Now, let's talk about the combat because this is where things are just ugly. This is where again I've talked about kind of all the positives. Now we're going to talk about the negatives because there is a lot bad about the combat system. Before I get into the just the clunkiness of the combat system, actually let me talk about that first, and then I'll get into the bugs. Um, Combat is clunky. A lot of reviews have talked about this. It's certainly true. first and foremost, you have combat lock, which is something that is common in many games, but it doesn't work very well. Earlier today, I was playing a session and my combat lock toggled, and I was switching through targets, and I got stuck on some exploding barrels during the middle of a boss fight, and I couldn't target. I couldn't get off of the barrels, and I also couldn't turn it off. So my character was just continually facing these barrels while I'm getting wailed on from all directions by these boss mobs, and I just ended up dying and having to redo the fight, all because my target lock wouldn't work the way I wanted it to. And it's very sensitive. It doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. When it does work, great. It works like any other game with combat lock, like say Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order as an example, or I'm not even gonna name games. It doesn't work very well. Is a downside. The other downside is that the combat system, the way it works, is once you start doing a combo with your character, you are locked into the direction that that character is traveling if you're not locked onto a target. So if you are trying to do free form combat and you're just trying to look around and attack different targets without locking onto something, it doesn't work like that in this game. Because once you start a combo chain, you will keep going in that direction until you finish the combo. And I have now, on at least a dozen occasions, proceeded to combo my ass off the edge of a precipice to, thankfully, not uncertain death because it just respawns you back on top. But I have literally shot myself off the edge of cliffs. I've shot myself off into fire. I've shot myself off into poison. I've shot myself off into ice traps, all because once I start a combo, you have no control over the direction of your character. He just keeps going until the combo is finished. And that's something that I really don't like because it would be great if I could change directions and so that I could control my character even when he's doing combos. So that's the one big frustration for me is the fact that you have no control over your character once they start a combo, and it can make combat a little quirky. Um, Now, the exploits are probably the biggest issue that I see with this game in its current state. And I've shown some of these in my gameplay series, which I'm doing right now on YouTube. So, for an example, one of the first boss in the first dungeon, there's a side boss that you can do who's like in this ice pit, and in this video, you'll even see it. As I'm talking about this, I'm going to show this on the screen. I was able to pull him back into the ice pit a little bit, and he was trying to get to me and taking damage from the DOT of that ice trap. And then I eventually ran up to him and just knocked him down, and he didn't get back up again, pretty much ever. That is very common with the boss mobs, is that if you can get them knocked down, you can keep them knocked down, and you just keep slamming them with heavy attacks over and over and over and over and over again. I have now done multiple boss mobs using that technique. It's just if you can get them knocked down, they stay down, and then you just sit there and wail on them until they're dead. That's an easy exploit. One of the other things I did is with this same boss mob, I tried a different exploit, and it worked brilliantly. I dropped down the ladder where he was on the clear side, where he was facing the. Basically there's the ice pit, the ice traps behind him, and then there's the clear space that he's in. So you go down the ladder, he's there, he's in front of me. I did my master summon, which summons your panther, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, um, and they start attacking. He started my ultimate ability starts damaging the mob, and my panther's running around and keeping the mob occupied, and it pushed him back into the ice pit, and he just stayed there trying to attack my ultimate pet and just kept doing these circle things as my pet was attacking him. And between the pet and the damage over time from the ice trap, I didn't have to do anything. I literally just sat there and watched his health just go down, and he eventually died. So that's unfortunately, I've seen quite a few combat exploits that kind of take the difficulty out of these boss encounters, and that's a you know in the grand scheme of things, if you're just playing this game to have fun with the characters that you know and love from Forgotten Realms, okay, that's not that big of a deal. But from a person like me who likes to enjoy the difficulty of combat scenarios and everything else, it's kind of a downside. So, all that being said, I am having fun with the game. Um, if I had to give it a rating of like 1 to 10, it would be a hard 7 for me. Like yeah, it's difficult for me to even get to 7. Like the only reason I don't completely give it just like a 6 is because I'm having fun, you know. But I also am the same person who a lot of people criticize because I played through all the bugs at the launch of Cyberpunk 2077 on the PS4 and still had fun despite all the crap that that game was through. But that game, I went from saying it was worth a 5 or a 6 when it launched to saying now that they've patched it and fixed it, I find Cyberpunk 2077 is like an 8.5 or a 9. So I look at this game in the current state that it's in, and I say it's like a 7, but it's hard to get to 7. It's definitely not more than a 7 for me. It's not an 8 or a 9 or a 10. It's a 7. And if they patch things up and fix some of these bugs and tweak the combat and fix the exploits, who knows? It remains to be seen. I'd like to see what they're going to do with the free patches and the new class that they're going to be adding. And they also have a paid DLC coming down the pipeline. And I know that Wizards of the Coast has put a lot of money into this game, and they've promoted the hell out of it, and they're hyped about it, and they're trying really hard for this to be one of these products that continues to showcase the value of the D&D brand and the intellectual property of Forgotten Realms. So hopefully they're going to put the time in to make this game better because it needs to be better. So again, I'm having fun. I think it's worth spending $40 on if you enjoy action RPGs and you like the characters from Forgotten Realms and Icewind Dale and you want to see these amazing landscapes and these beautiful environments from Icewind Dale brought to life. But if you can get it from Microsoft Games Pass because you have a subscription, you'd be better off doing it there because you're going to save yourself a hell of a lot of money, and potentially wait until they patch the game up and fix some of these issues that it has. Because as of right now, unless you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons and Icewind Dale and you're a big fan of the brand and the intellectual property, it's going to be a hard sell for people who aren't fanatics. So I know this episode went a little longer than a lot of the previous Is It Worth It games that I do in this series, but this is one of those one that's tricky for me because I tend to try to only ever do like really positive reviews. And I like this game and I want it to be better, so I'm hoping that it does get better because it has a lot of potential, but it does have quite a few things that are holding it back from being the game that I think it could be. So that's my take on things. Let me know what you think about the game. Like, dislike, drop some comments below. Let me know what you like or dislike. Let me know if you've been watching the playthrough series that I'm doing on YouTube. Drop a link below, comment below, excuse me, and let me know. And of course, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell icon if you want to see more of my gameplay sessions or the review series that I do or all the other things that I do. And consider picking up a subscription over on Patreon to support what I do here. You can get in for as little as $3 a month, which is a great way to say, hey, buy you a cup of coffee. Thanks for the hard work you put into YouTube. I would appreciate that. Thanks to everybody. I will see everybody in the next episode. Stay safe, stay healthy, and safe gaming.